wanted to get this one last video edited and posted tonight before I get distracted with something else. I wanted to show you my windowsill aeroponics in buckets. Now, I got this idea off YouTube, off another channel, and they were doing it 5-gallon pails, and I decided I didn't want all that weight on that shelf, so I went with a smaller pail, 2-gallon buckets, and I did the process of boring out these holes. I got the pool noodle, made the hole a little bit smaller than the pool noodle so it squeezes it tight. And then what I did was I took my seeds, I wrapped them in paper towel, and then I made a wick out of hemp string going down into the water. Did not work as effectively as I needed it to, so I took little strips of paper towel and hung those from where the seed was down into the water. Worked perfect, gives it the perfect amount of moisture. So I did these 8 days ago, and they're already sending roots and shoots out, and we're actually going to look at a couple of them. We're going to look at the Alaska pea. Now, this came up 4 days ago. As you can see there, that's 4 days old. From the time the seed started to germinate to the growth you see there, and I'll show you what happened inside the bucket. So what happened, as you can see here, it's got your air roots, which are near the surface of what would be the soil, and then you got your water roots, and these are absorbing all the nutrient stuff. I have my activated charcoal in there to provide those little microbacteria with a home, a place they can colonize. You see it's discolored the water a little bit, but that pea is loving it. I turn these buckets so that each cell, I'm going to call these cells, get as much direct ultraviolet light through the window as possible. This isn't an ideal place, but it's warm in here because it's next to the fireplace. So I did tomatoes, Alaska peas, and cucumber. So now the cucumber started to grow in the bucket. So all I did was simply take out that pool noodle and turn the plant around so that the foliage was coming outside the bucket. Now the roots are figuring out which direction they're supposed to be going, and they're heading for the water, following that paper towel wick down into the water. And see how nice, I don't know if you can tell the color on the phone, but it's a beautiful dark green, nice and healthy. And I'm going to explain my microbacteria culture that I'm using in each of these buckets. This one just came up yesterday. It's an indigo. Oh, there we go. You can just see it there. That's an indigo rose, a heritage tomato. And I didn't know if the tomatoes were going to take off like they are, but each one of these cells is sending roots down first to get the most water and absorb the most nutrients that it possibly can. And then they'll start sending out your little seedling. Now, in each of these buckets, for the most part, I have those roots coming down into the water. So this is all experimental. I've never done aeroponics before, but so far, so good. And relatively easy. It took me an hour to do these buckets and some coffee cans, which I did the same thing, but I made the cell a little bit smaller. The other critical thing here is it needs air, fresh air coming in to feed those air roots. And on this side, you don't want your air roots to be plugged up with water. They need to be able to breathe air. So this little drain hole here, and it's the same on these buckets, this will stop the water from getting any higher than it should be, so those air roots stay dry. Now, some of you might know, a home that's heated with a fireplace is dry. There's a lot of moisture that needs to be put back into the air because the wood heat dries it out so bad. That being said, these are hardly letting out any moisture. I've maybe topped off a 1/4 inch to bring it back up to this drain hole here. Now what I've been doing is a mixture of water and my microbacteria culture, and you got to shake this multiple times a day. I leave it out, so every time I walk past, I just give it a shake. Now this is rice water and black tea. Now every time I make a pot of rice, I'll top this off so that the starch and the sugars are working in this culture and feeding the microbacteria. So now I'm using this as an experiment. I've doubled up my plant species so that I've got the forbidden artificially collected nutrient solution. It's a good product, but it's not the way nature collects nutrients. Now I've got on the bottom buckets, I'm using this solution, and in the top buckets, I'm using my microbacteria culture. So far, so good in that respect. Now I did little Mary Jane plants, and this is experimental. This container, I've used the artificial solution, and there is nothing there yet. These were both planted at the same time. Same packet of seeds and everything. Now on this one here, you can see these are only a few days old. They're already starting to send up the second layer, the second growth of leaves. It's so tiny, I doubt the camera would pick it up. So now I can take my strongest plants here, knock it down to 4. I'll keep my strongest plants and pop out the other ones, leaving with me my limit of 4. The other thing I did was radish microgreens. Now, I also used synthetic, I don't even know what to call it, an artificially collected mineral solution. I did that on one tray. They didn't even come up. No, I got the one that was designed for doing your microgreens and all that stuff. This one here is only a few days old since it germinated, and I've been using my rice water solution. And you can smell the radish. It smells so good. There's little tiny bulbs forming on the bottom. I use these on my scrambled eggs, but I'm gonna let this tray see how mature I can get it. It's not an ideal environment, but I want to see how much nutrients these radish greens can pull out and how far they'll go in their maturity. This is a spinach. Again, only a few days since it germinated. You can see they're all leaning because that's the way they're pointed towards the window. So tonight, I turn them this way. I give them another feeding. Every third day, I'll feed them with the microbacteria solution, and in between, I'll lightly water on the days when I'm not using that solution. And they're growing. They're strong little plants. So these will turn back the other way as the sun comes up through the window in the morning. So this is spinach. Now these are not doing as well. I've only used my soil base in here and water. Now this is romaine lettuce. It feels a little bit rubbery. They don't feel as strong as they should. And they're getting too much growth in here, which means they're not getting enough light. These should be down farther. So tomorrow, if it's warm enough, I'm going to take these outside. Because right next to the window, it's fairly cool. So these should be hardy enough to make it through an afternoon and really get some sunshine. So I want to stop the top of that stem growth and see if we can recover these seedlings. So that's a quick little video on my aeroponics experiment. Like I said before, I've never tried it, and I'll do another update video later on, maybe in a month. They should be outside by then, and we'll see what I did right or wrong. Anyways, till then, take care.